Today's episode is sponsored by Meter, delivering a complete network as a service offering, wired, wireless, and cellular in a unified solution. Find out more at meter.com/heavy networking. Welcome to Heavy Networking, the flagship podcast from the Packet Pushers network of fine podcasts, videos, newsletters, and community folks that make you better at networking, security, DevOps, and tech leadership. I'm Ethan Banks, along with Drew Conway Murray, and you can follow us along with the Packet Pushers company page on LinkedIn. And please do. We help you keep up with interesting content and career opportunities via our LinkedIn feeds. You might see the occasional meme, too, because we have a sense of humor. What did you know? Oh, wow, surprising. In today's episode, we chat with Carlos Pignataro. Carlos has been around networking for a long time. His list of credentials and accomplishments is it's vast. You should visit his LinkedIn profile to get a sense of his contributions to the global internet, networking companies such as Cisco, academic institutions, startups, standards development bodies such as the IETF, and so on. Lots and lots of the networking technology that you and I work with today might well have Carlos's fingerprints on them. And we are discussing the real-world impact of artificial intelligence on network operations with Carlos today. And his take, I think I would describe it as somewhat different than many. He's got a thoughtful, reserved, considered opinion, balanced. And so if you're as sick to death of the AI hype machine as I am, I think you're going to find Carlos to be reasonable in how he views AI. So Carlos, welcome to Heavy Networking. It's lovely to have you here. And these days, you have your own consulting firm, right?
That is right. Thank you. These days, I head my consulting firm. I head and I feed my consulting firm. I do a lot of things, head, shoulder, knees, and toes. It really is the place that allows me to be selective about what I work on. Of course, needs to have a strong component of technology. That's what we do. It needs to be something exciting that I learn. Number two, it needs to be with great people, and I need to feel that I can contribute to whichever cause or project or engagement, as the three. So, and this, most definitely covers those three. So super excited to be here. Thank you very much, Ethan, for having me.
No, you reached out to us because you had some thoughts on AI. That's certainly something you've been running into in your consulting work. And in the last couple of years, the way I see it is AI has become a lot more involved in network operations. There's LLMs that have become and found a role. Agentic AI, of course, is a big deal now. And AI is becoming part of network automation's workflow, which has complicated the adoption of network automation because, okay, AI is a thing now. How do I include that? What does that do to the automation platform I'm trying to build? So I want to set up the question this way, because I know you have a take here. Have we finally arrived at what we would call intent-based networking? Several years ago, we had that term, intent-based networking.
I don't think we have arrived or we will arrive at intent-based networking, just to get the question out of the way and deep dive into the more nuanced pieces of it. But it's wonderful because, me as a visual person, when you mention intent-based networking, my mind went, fast backward time machine 15 years ago to see the slides of we have arrived at intent-based and, reactive, proactive, predictive, and preemptive. So there's been a lot of slideware about it. And I think it's always useful, Ethan and Drew, to think about, are we starting with the problem or with the solution in hand? And, in many of these cases, we're starting with a solution and reverse engineering, backtracking, potential problems. At the same time, I will say that in my experience, we are actually closest that we've ever been to having the pieces for intent-based networking. And when I say that, I often think, Drew and Ethan, that it's very useful to think in terms of architectural constructs, just because doing that is a lot more objective, is a less biased way in which we can actually understand technology. We have a systemic view of an architecture. And if we actually decompose the different capabilities that we have within that architecture, well, many of these modules are actually best served with technologies that we have now and we didn't have 15 years ago.
So do you feel like that the goal of intent was kind of always pretty solid? It just, we didn't have the technology to actually make it happen versus, I don't know what the opposite of intent-based networking is, but just a well-functioning network?
I think a little bit neither. I think, not that it's a fully false dichotomy, but at the same time, I think, there's marketing pixie dust in intent base as opposed to, RJ45s and stuff like that. And at the same time, I feel that every type of approach that goes too far in one direction is going to miss a global maximum. And what I mean by that is, intent-based networking has, to my recollection, normally been pitched as something on which you share an intent and some, magic black box actually completely autonomously does work, and not only understands you, but actually does the stuff, and you're talking in English as opposed to in TLVs, right? In type length value packet structures, and what that forgets is the human. And to me, one of the elements that is often missing in the conversation about AI is the human.
How do you mean? In the sense that a human needs to be making decisions, or the human can be too vague in what they're expressing, or?
Yes, and I think, Ethan, that trying to, if we think about, I have this, potential problem opportunity within a NOC, network operations, and I need to find the most optimum way of actually addressing that problem or capturing that opportunity. I feel that, there's approaches in which we're going to try to automate 99.79 of it. There's approaches on which we're going to try to, throw headcount at the problem. And the optimum place is when we can actually leverage the best of both ends, to have a closed loop that includes automations as well as humans, and that's when we actually reach a maximum that is an optimization that is better that we can do with automation alone or with humans alone.
Well, doesn't agentic help us with that on some level, where an agent can be narrowly scoped to have expertise in one specific thing, and then you have several agents, therefore, each with their own specialties that we can trust individually to deliver a solution autonomously, then add a bunch of agents together, and maybe you can deliver something larger, autonomously. Autonomously being the magical keyword there.
I love that. I love that because, effectively, if we're actually decomposing what is needed end-to-end for a system in individual components, then we can actually apply best of breed for each one of those components, many of which will actually be completely autonomous. The system might not be completely autonomous, and it's a question, that we can actually, deep dive a little bit later if that's a goal or not, but each one of those components can actually be, completely autonomous and be, part of a larger system in which 1 + 1 is more than 2, because, you're going in a direction that is very real, and something that I actually see in some early startups, in what I would qualify as, the most effective and successful approaches, which are understand what pieces can actually be automized and autonomized, made autonomous. So for example, for a machine, playing AI is actually very easy to manage a graph view and topologies. Is a lot more difficult for me. So having an agent that actually deals with topology alone, having, for example, Ethan, an agent that deals with problem identification, problem isolation, fault isolation, I should rather say, then you can actually, the way that we decompose it, we can actually compose that into different parts depending on our goal and depending on where we want to place the human. So, for example, we can use that for a system to completely identify problems within a network. This link is actually the root cause of the outage, or we can use it for capacity planning. And one of the architectural principles that I would use to think about how to make these choices is, what does AI give you? What is the strength of AI? What are the real characteristics? And when we say AI, let's talk about LLMs. Is determinism one of the key characteristics? Not necessarily. No. Is it something that iteratively refines or degrades an output? Iteratively, it potentially degrades it. So where is the right place where I can actually use that versus a deep neural network that is actually optimized for, again, understanding topologies, for example. Does it actually, perfect? Does it actually refine, or does it blur the view of the network? It potentially refines it. So there you actually have the potential kernel of an autonomous agent that in itself is a module, right? But is clearly part of an architecture that has everything to win over a traditional approach.
I guess I'm curious where you see the human then in an autonomous system. If, as agents develop, they get better individually at these areas of expertise where I can essentially, build a team of AI agents that are better than, a CCIE I could hire off the street. What is the role for a human in that kind of autonomous system?
So there's a couple of pieces, for the human in that loop. The first one is at decision time, at creation time, right? When we're actually choosing what are the right modules for this particular problem or opportunity that we're addressing. So there's clearly human on the planning side, on the developing planning, architectural planning side. There's clearly, in my view, maybe it's not clear, so I'm not gonna say clearly. There's opaquely or potentially, there's a human that is actually doing adult supervision. What is the term? I don't know the technical term, right? They're supervising.
The human in the loop. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a supervision element that you can actually place, either within, like doing adult supervision of an agent or doing adult supervision of the system. And there's a human in understanding the optimization of the system. So, Drew, one of the things that I do right now is I am the director for the AI Executives Council at the Conference Board. What that is a number of heads of AI get together under Chatham House rules and talk about their problems, opportunities, etc., from different corporations, including networking companies, but more broadly. And one of the key conversations that I hear there is exactly what you're asking, which is, what is the most optimum place to actually put the human? and within that loop, and that comes with assumptions that we're actually taking for granted. But first of all, that we have a closed loop as opposed to an open loop system. Second, we're kind of like, what is it really that we're optimizing? We're optimizing for something to work better than the current alternatives, do the best that it can actually potentially do mathematically. And the question about, within my overall loop, where do I actually place the human and in what set of roles? I feel there's no one size fit all, and I also feel that that the industry is actually trying to figure that one out. And to figure that one out, we're going to try and trial and error on both sides, put in too much and too little human.
So you mentioned assumptions. Are there assumptions you see the industry sort of bringing to this space, or network engineers bringing to this space, that maybe aren't the right assumptions to be approaching it with?
I think so, and I think so in a purely observational way, not in a judgmental way. But observationally, I observe that there is there's a couple of observations that I can make in terms of assumptions. The first one, one that we have been a little bit making, which is, we're talking about AI. Is that too coarse of a set to actually be describing things of equal characteristics?
It is, right? Because there's LLMs, there's machine learning, and sundry other AI techniques that, working together, deliver an artificial intelligence-based outcome of some sort. But we do tend to lump it all as AI generally, and I think the distinctions are in fact important. Exactly,
right. So you're hitting the nail on the head on that one, and it's one assumption that we bring implicitly or explicitly. And my personal choice there is, every time that I talk about AI, informally with my kids or more formal settings or business settings, I really say, okay, let's wait and define definition of terms. Is the beginning of wisdom? What are we really talking about? And are these two AI things, of the same characteristics or not? And simple things: do they converge or diverge? Which, for something like networking, is incredibly critical, right? Do they converge on a solution, or do they, if we do the photocopy example, and iterate something through the machine, is it converging or diverging? Well, LLMs and deep learning algorithms don't have the same end results there. So I think we're doing a bit of a potential confusion disservice, which is great for
marketing.
It's great for hype cycles. It's great for stock values. It's great. It's not necessarily great for engineers. So that's one that I think is big.
And you mentioned a second.
And I'm sure I did.
Okay, we can skip that. That's fine.
No. No, that was a half joke. But I did actually have a second in mind. But one is the calling everything AI. The second one, I feel, is starting with a solution in mind as an implicit assumption. Which again, we're all somewhat guilty.
The answer is AI. What was the question?
Right. Exactly. There's an AI for that. What was the yes?
Yeah. For a while, at least we've changed from Kubernetes. It used to be for a long time. The answer is Kubernetes. Now, what was your question? So I know we just moved on. Carlos, as an industry, let's scope this to networking specifically. Do you think that we're doing AI right? Are we This is what I mean by that. Are we applying AI technology in a way that is bringing new value to network operations?
I think we have great upside and untapped opportunity, in terms of AI. So that's a, kind and polite way of saying not really. I think, we can extract a lot more value. And if, it's always nice to, in these conversations, to try to also, go concrete, because that's rubber meeting road and going real. So, for example, can AI do things like sift through noise and identify signal from noise in telemetry? Oceans of data coming from diverse. Yes, it can, and we're not necessarily applying it there just yet. Can LLMs, understand not only English and Spanish and Japanese, but can they understand log language? And can they actually, parse at great speeds and near real time through a lot of logs to actually make something that not makes sense from a reasoning perspective, because this is not a reasoning engine, but it makes sense from a statistical number of words that I know and that I've seen perspective, which is really a statistically significant answer by definition, right? So can it actually talk to logs? Yes, it can. We're not using it there. So, and I think part of the distraction, part of the mirage is the couple of things, Ethan and Drew, that you surface, and we were talking about lumping everything together, not really talking about the nuance of each one of these AIs, coming with a solution. AI is the solution. What was the question? That is actually blinders on what problems can actually be solved. So, which is awesome because it's great upside.
So to qualify your answer here, you're saying we're not using AI right yet. You see potential, you see upside, you see there are things that we can do with AI that we can't do with other tools that we've had historically, but we haven't gotten to that point yet of using AI in that way?
I love that. Yes, exactly. And I would even add that, I would, remove the right, are we doing it right or wrong? Because that comes with, number one, an implicit judgment, and number two, a little bit of a binary scale. I think we got
to judge something. There's a lot of money going out the door right now. So at some point we got to place some judgment.
No, well, yes. Okay. 1,000,000%. So in that, if part of the criteria is investment and potential return, there is a right and wrong for sure. But from a purely, more technical aspect, I think there's a volume dial in which we are at volume 2, and we can go up to, 17 or 27. Why not? Let's judge a little bit. I think, a lot of the applications are wrong.
Why is that? Because you think they're not delivering value, or they're just aiming at the wrong problems that this technology is really designed for?
Both are two sides of the same problematic, I think. There's, hype comes with, less analytics in decision making, and particularly where funds are actually placed, where investments are actually placed. Has a positive feedback loop of greediness. Listen, I think we've all heard, Drew, a CEO that says, I want AI, I don't know what I want to solve, but I want to say that I have AI in here. Okay, where do you want it? I don't know, but I want, so that type of short-term thinking, I think, is certainly guilty for that. And I think there's actually, one more, even bigger, potential issue, which is what is the balance of power in terms of where that money is going, or investments. Is that centralized in a bunch of small places, entities, locations, people, or is that broad? And I think part of the current landscape that we see that doesn't have the diversity of problems being solved, the diversity of applications of AI, the diversity of ideas. I'll tell you, I'm sure a million NOC engineers have immense amount of ideas, on how to use this, and they can actually bubble up to, is that startup going to be funded, or is going to be, more of a, power constraint ecosystem. That I feel is, closer to even the root.
So you gave, I think, two very concrete examples of where you think machine learning or some other kind of artificial intelligence subset could be useful: telemetry and logs. But what I think Ethan and I are seeing is most organizations sort of coming out the door with, we put a LLM chatbot on the front end of our system so you can talk to it, which is something. But in terms of value, it sounds like you're saying that's fine, but you can get more out of doing things over here. But maybe the issue with those areas you picked is that there's also a lot of like data science stuff that has to happen in terms of how good is the data, how clean is the data, we need to dedupe it, we need to normalize it and all that. And that's expensive and time consuming and not as cool as, hey, look, you can talk to your network. Like not as easy to show the value.
And you're right. I see the exact same things, and I feel that is short-term effect of hype cycles, frankly. And I absolutely see the same things. And what I also observe as the next step is the CFO asking, "So what was the ROI for that chatbot again?" And that actually, the technical term is sucks because then it actually, you get less investment for the next thing when you actually want to do something a little bit more meaningful. So chatbots are awesome. Don't get me wrong, but it's like a little bit of a lemmings, approach. We're going in that direction. Why? Well, we're going in that direction. I feel, Anna Pinsik was my boss and guide for many years, and she used to say, "Go slow to go fast." That, or at least I learned it from her, and I'm not claiming that it's hers, but I feel there is a go slow to go fast moment that is necessary to actually see, well, what are the real problems that need solving. And listen, I understand within corporations, the need for efficiency and optimization of the bottom line and the cost structure of, like, that's super clear to me.
Go slow to go fast, though, is like anathema to the tech industry, particularly the startup industry. So how do you square that?
Yes and no, because like I if we think of startups starting from taking a shower an idea moment, there is a go slow initially, and that often is not seen because is like, that is really like early stage. I was a mentoring resident at Duke University for the OTC, the Office of Translation and Commercialization Department, which effectively builds startups or licensing from the university IP. And I have actually seen, not only in academia, but in the industry as well, a lot of go slow initially. it's and there's no other than go slow when you actually are bootstrapping, and you have your uncle's part of 401k or to help. So I feel there is a go slow. I don't think it's necessarily glamorous or highlighted.
Our sponsor, Meter, is a network as a service company, and that means a Meter network is a tightly integrated stack of network hardware and operating system software, delivering wired, wireless, and cellular service. Now, Meter delivers the gear to your premises as a service, right? And what that means is the tedious parts of network operations are handled by Meter for you. So you don't have to deal with NOS upgrades. When gear hits end of life, they're going to send you shiny new gear. All of that, and they monitor your network for you remotely. Meter can handle sites as small as a branch office and as large as a campus or data center. Meter doesn't just ship gear to you, though. They handle other aspects of bringing a site online. They can deal with internet circuit procurement and site surveys and cabling. All of that stuff and more is part of what Meter offers. The network stack that they're delivering gives you a full function, all the things: security, routing, firewalling, switching, wireless, cellular, power, that is intelligent power, DNS security, VPN, SD-WAN, and even multi-site workflows. In fall 2025, I did video in the Packet Pushers YouTube channel where I work with a Meter stack to show you some of those features, and I'm going to do an updated video in 2026. I was at their headquarters recently, and I got a sneak peek at their newest hardware and a preview of the new software features. There's a lot of stuff coming. These guys are iterating fast, and how do I put this? There's a vibe. It's been a while since I visited a startup I had that genuine thrill of enthusiasm from everybody that I was talking to there, but I got that at Meter 100%. The Meter team is excited about what they are building. So thanks to Meter for sponsoring, and go to meter.com/heavy networking to book a demo. That's meter.com/heavy networking to book a demo now.
Now, you mentioned startups. Drew and I talked to a lot of startups, and while exactly what Drew said, most of the AI stuff we've seen has kind of been low-hanging fruit. Hey, we trained a chatbot on our documentation, and those sorts of things. The big vendors are beginning to come up with more significant AI applications that have to do with data. The startups, I'm thinking of Selector.ai particularly, have gotten in. It's like, okay, to mine your network data and telemetry for real world interesting use cases, there's a lot of hard work that's got to be done to make that happen. And you find out from those guys specifically, this is an intense engagement to actually translate what you've got in the form of data on your network into some kind of an application, some kind of a use case that has a demonstrable ROI for your business. So let's get serious, guys. And if you want to get serious, this is what it looks like. All right. Aside from them, and there's some others I've heard some rumors about that are taking a similar approach. I don't know what the AI startups for network operations might be doing. Do you have advice for these folks, the startup community that would be supporting networking specifically? What should they be doing? Some of these startups have already come and gone in this space.
I think you both have been giving implicit advice through through a lot of the comments and suggestions that you have sprinkled. Ethan, I also talked to a few startups, and I have a very, very similar experience than what you're describing. There's only a handful, and I feel that the ones that don't necessarily shortcut what it takes to go from 0 to 1 in terms of everything, in terms of problem to solution, in terms of, those are the ones that actually have, potential opportunity to actually grow into something sustainable. It's less about what is the use case of the day, chatbot or whatever else, and more about, with this new technology, what can we do that we couldn't do before? And I feel that doing that architectural decomposition that we started with, and understanding the components that actually have not been solved by the industry today, applying new tech to those, and then doing the composition, a composable architecture that actually uses pieces that didn't exist before, those are the ones that are actually going to create value. My experience is that a lot of this is actually happening in startups more than in established vendors. Within the build, buy, and partner. I think there's a wait and buy and partner approach from more established companies, and I actually do think that there are quite a few that are less afraid of actually trying to solve the tougher problem. So let's not dance around it anymore, because Drew, you mentioned data, and Ethan, you mentioned data a couple of times, and that is really one of the core is like not only is the fuel and the hurdle, is both, and I have seen startups that are actually using their own agents in a very precise and prescriptive and narrow scope way to clean data so that it can actually be used by their other agents, right? So those type of startups and companies are actually taking longer to come to light, to come out of stealth, they are taking longer, but it's actually pretty amazing, because the converse of that is that you're buying risk. If you're actually using, again, the technical term is crappy. I don't know any other. If you're using crappy data, for feeding all your analytics and AI systems, what you're actually adding is risk to the business. Risk in a lot of terms, like, I have seen, companies that enable off-the-shelf LLM over their documentations and websites, and suddenly they made very private documents available to interns that they were there, but they were hidden by obscurity. No one could actually find them unless they went down 35 folders in name XYZ. They, in practical terms, they were not findable, and they were surfaced. Well, the same thing happens with applying any type of AI, from an analytic and statistical term to the underlying data of the network. You can actually surface a black hole for the network. You can actually surface a lot of risk, and doing that approach that, well, my data needs to have this set of characteristics, and frankly, being more precise, not the data, but the metadata of that data need to have certain characteristics. Well, I'm going to build an agent that is actually clean up the metadata of the data that I'm going to be using with this other agent. It's not a shortcut, but it's crazy creative, and it has more chances of a midterm sustainability.
We talked about assumptions earlier, and I feel like we're seeing the AI industry move with incredible rapidity toward an agentic model. Do you feel like that's a good assumption, or is there another way we should be thinking about how this field develops?
Thank you for the question. I think, agentic as a name is very cool. It has, it grabs, it has a little bit of a call to adventure. It's like, I'm going on a spaceship and I'm going to be agentic. I think that's the real reason. Now, from an architectural perspective, the idea of decomposing things and, having modularity, the idea of, they're all architecturally sound ideas. So sure. The direction of going agentic, I think, is very healthy. So long as we don't treat all agents the same, or we apply all the technology to all, problem-solving agents. There's agents that need traditional analytics, not AI, not deep learning, and that those type of decisions, require technology maturity as opposed to hype, right? So, yes, it is. I like the direction because it helps you, just by modularity, go faster, go more controlled. You can actually do A/B testing between agents. There's a lot of pros. So long as we don't peanut butter all the agents with the same solution. What do you both think?
I guess on the surface, it makes sense to me in that we have seen over and over again the value of decomposition and abstraction. We have the frameworks in place to connect things like APIs or whatever. So it makes sense. But I also have seen, I feel like, the industry in different ways repeatedly sort of go through phases of decomposition and recomposition where, no, now we've decided it's better to do it all here. So I'm just curious if we will see that trend flip at some point down the road.
And I feel there is an attractor in the middle. We go from, complete disaggregation to, single controller SDN to, and I think those are great to do the maximum locally of the overall system. If we want the global maximum, invariably there's a hybrid approach. Part is centralized, part is distributed. I think this is no different. And Ethan, I think I may have interrupted you.
Well, no, you didn't interrupt me. The challenge, as I see it, since you put the question to us, has to do broadly with the uniqueness of networks. That is, it's not the same set of interfaces that are available on every vendor's platforms. The way the network is composed and what the network is intended to do varies by what your business is. If you're a service provider, it's kind of different from what an enterprise is delivering, even though there's a lot of overlap. And when you try to put an abstraction layer on top of that, it becomes really difficult because you don't know what is sitting underneath that abstraction layer as an abstraction layer designer. And so you're trying to deliver a common set of value that is a one-size-fits-all for every network. And in 15 odd years of trying, we haven't gotten to that point where we've been able to successfully abstract the network in any one particular way. We end up with these pockets of abstraction or specific use case abstractions that work for a certain subset of players in the market, but not everybody. And so to adopt it broadly, whether you're a human trying to create a network automation platform, or whether you're someone who wants to just apply artificial intelligence to the problem, the uniqueness of network environments makes that problem really freaking hard. And we just haven't gotten the better of it.
What made me think what you were saying, it took me in the direction of, different types of networks and their inherent characteristics. So, for example, a wireless network versus a campus versus a data center, and what are more predictable versus what are more, that is I feel there's a heat map of applicability. And that's something that I feel we have not as an industry been objective about, what type of tech applies actually within each one of these fields.
Yep. I want to go back to the notion of unique value that AI could bring to network operations. So I want to give you an example of what I heard from Extreme Networks. They are leaning hard into using artificial intelligence to deliver unique value to their customer base. And I can't remember how much of what this story was on the record versus off the record, so I will be somewhat vague. But the idea was we are going to mine data from, the use case was sports, and we're going to mine data from people that are attending this sports events who have associated their device to an access point in the arena, monitor that device as it walks around, and then make inferences based on that data about what's going on in the arena. arena and can drive business decisions out of that related to selling food or upselling tickets, perhaps, or how the restrooms are being managed, things like that I thought was fascinating, and how much of that was a real thing versus how much of that were ideas they were playing with to kind of see what was going was unclear to me. But that's the direction Extreme wants to take their customers. Hey guys, your network is full of really cool data, and if we throw AI at the problem, we can come up with some interesting solutions that have business outcomes for you. Have you heard of these sorts of things and think there's something there, Carlos?
I have heard of similar things, and not necessarily, passing a judgment on this particular solution, but in general, I have heard of similar things, for the past 20 years, and I know, quite a few people that lost their sanity looking for the right use case. No, the use case is actually in Stadium Vision. No, it's in Stadium this. No, it's actually in Wi-Fi 4. No, it's in sustainability because we, when there's no one, I turn on the lights and turn off the, I think as a almost a little bit naive, proposition, it's sound on the surface. The devil that is lurking in those details is actually stronger than we, in my experience, than we think. Because, I've heard that, any scenario from, an industry plant to, material extraction from mountains and all this data that, yes, and people are still looking for the use case. In my opinion, and there's another side of that which is geographical dependent. Right now I am in Europe, and that conversation that you can actually have in the US versus Europe with the use of data is day and night completely different.
Because of privacy concerns, you mean?
Exactly, because of regulations, not only concerns, but regulations. Because of two things, because of privacy concerns and associated regulations, one. Number two, because of the fragmentation that the US has as opposed to the coalition of the EU has in terms of policy. It's not like I can jump to a different state and have a completely different privacy or AI or whatever else law. So a lot of those conversations you are non-starter or have a different color altogether when when you're in, for example, EU. And frankly, we keep going back to data as one of the main elements, main ingredients of this conversation. And we actually mentioned privacy. There's the other side of AI that we've not talked about just yet, has to do with, the associated privacy of that data, the potential misuses in terms of surveillance or collection or...
The ethics around this, yeah.
The ethics around it, exactly. So that's another, mountain to demystify, to actually go deeper into what are the implications for some of those solutions that are going to use, broadly. I'm going to use data, and part of that is, what is the value equation? Whose value who is using, from that data, and doing that value chain is such an interesting case, because then you find yourself as the product, or you find yourself as the funder of the product that you're using, and it's kind of weird.
Yeah, we should get you on a separate conversation to talk about the ethics of it, because that'd open up a whole other conversation for sure. We'll get you on heavy strategy. That's what we'll do. We'll get you with Jonna and John to talk talk ethics. Jonah has opinions, I bet, and would love to engage in a conversation with you about that. Let me ask you a closing question, Carlos. Let's say I want to get. I'm a network architect. I'm looking at maybe a network design, and that I want to be AI operations friendly. Because we're going to assume that even though there's been a healthy dose of skepticism expressed in this particular podcast, let's assume that AI is going to take us somewhere useful. And I want my network to be AI operations friendly. What do I got to think about that maybe I didn't have to think about 10 years ago?
That is such an amazing question. To wrap some of the conversation, to bring it together. Because it really, I will turn it around and make it a call to action. This is something very actionable and concrete that we can actually, leave, audience of the podcast. And, number one, we cannot go a couple of sentences or words without saying data, metadata in some form or another. That is, a number one thing that I would invite any network operations, people. 10 years ago, I remember I was in Mobile World Congress talking about AI ops and AI ops, different AI of what we say AI today. And we were not talking about data, we were talking about algorithms. That is something that is surfacing as a must requirement more and more. So, who's your data architect? Who is your network data architect? Is it part of your vendor or open source qualification? Any type of data reconciliation? Do you have information models and data models for your services? Do you have information models and data models that are that can talk to each other between your vendors? So that is number one, and that is going to be the basis for a smooth deployment or a nightmare in deployment or a blocker, right? So, number one, data and what is your data architecture? What are your data sources and data sinks, models, formats, etc. So that's number one. Number two, I feel, since we're actually talking about abstractions and architectures, I feel that having a solid understanding of the abstractions of a network and what are the places that can either be optimized or where new value, concrete value, as in revenue generating value, can be created, that is not an exercise that operations necessarily does or a NOC does often, daily, monthly, ever. It's a wonderful whiteboard conversation that I think I would challenge people to have. Within the construct of your network, what is the value being delivered today? What can be optimized? Where new value can be created? Based on that, it's a prioritization of the modules of your network. That is a second exercise that I have actually seen operators go through, and every now and again make interesting findings about both, about optimizations, whether is in terms of pure operations as in uptime or capacity planning of the network, as well as new potential services that the network can be actually used to providing. Those are two quick things that come to mind.
Well, there's a lot there in those two quick things. I mean, those are pretty significant.
Quick to say. Each one of which is a lifetime. And I feel it's not about shooting for perfection. Not that I'm a fan of Pareto in every situation, but I think with data in particular, everyone can show you their home directory, and there's no such a thing as clean perfection or anything. However, minimizing risk and maximizing correlationability of the data that you have are potentially two goals, right? Because AI doesn't, LLMs and generative in general doesn't provide you explainability. And that is something that is crucial in operations. Not only traceability and transparency, but explainability. There's no such a thing with LLMs. Is as black box as it gets. So you need a lot of the underlying data in information data models and structures, and appropriate metadata to be able to make that useful.
Okay, Carlos. Well, thank you for joining us today. Excellent conversation. Love your thoughts, and let's tell the folks how they can find you on the internet.
Carlos at Blue Fern Consulting is you can also type in your browser carlos.pignataro.net, and that's going to take you to my contact info.
Excellent. Thank you for being with us today, Carlos, and thank you for listening to Heavy Networking today. My general theme for the year has been to put the heavy back. So if you felt the content hasn't sufficiently scrambled your brains, I am aiming for some shows on heavy networking to do just that as 2026 progresses. And if you have topic ideas, would like to be a guest on the show, or follow someone you want to hear on a future episode and let us know about that person, you can tell us all about it via packetpushers.net/follow-up. So do all the things, please. Like, share, and subscribe. You can watch this show on YouTube, as we're publishing heavy networking episodes as videos now. And leave comments on whatever platform you listen or view. Buy something nice for yourself in our merch store, and just continue to be your awesome self. Thanks for all you do out there. Keeping the packets flowing. You are seen. Last but not least, just remember, too much networking would never be enough.